Hey, what's going on, everybody? Choco here, and welcome back to some Sky Factory 4. I am alone, single pringling on the server, and I am hanging out by myself. I already was here just a second ago helping me with a couple things here and there. But the reasoning is I'm actually pre-recording these videos for when I'm away on my trip. As you guys may, if you watched the H6M video, I'm not going to be here for a little while, but as soon as I get back, we'll be back into the regular old, shenaniganry and whatnot that we're usually up to. So when it comes to our current plan, I'm currently planning on doing a little bit of a showcase for how I've set up certain things in Sky Factory 4. So if you're playing your own Sky Factory 4 world, you have some ideas of how to maybe approach a problem depending upon if you have encountered said problem yourself. So I'm going to be highlighting some different things. Today I'm going to be talking about my little Inscriber tower here. And then after the Inscriber tower, we'll probably have an episode talking about deep mob learning and the automation of that. And then after that, we might go ahead and revisit like the potion brewing. And then I think we're also going to have the final part kind of being showcasing what the farm current state is as in my recording. So we can also hopefully compare and contrast to whenever the guys have worked on it for a little bit, because currently the expectation is that the whole thing, you'll notice there's a lot of empty platforms, but the whole thing will be populated by the time I get back. So anyways, onwards, let's talk about the Inscriber tower. Now, for those of you who have no idea about anything about mods, this will probably be a little bit weird to you, but this is really important for AE2, which is our huge storage system organization shenaniganry. It's very, very important, very critical for what we're doing, because this allows us to go ahead and create the different kinds of presses and processors that we need in order to create different kinds of components for machines and whatnots. So, pretty important. Now, we had talked about this before in the earlier one when we were talking about AE2 and the guys were messing around with that. But the way this basically works is that what I did is I just made a tower of 7 different. These are advanced inscribers, and again, it's going to be a little bit different depending upon which mod pack, because this, I believe, is something that was added in AE2 stuff. That does not, by default, come with AE2, so just be aware of that. But the advanced inscribers basically are just going to follow this whole idea of we're going to go ahead, put acceleration cards in all of them, and we have one for each type of process. Now, big thing here is that you'll notice that we have a silicon press, calculation press, engineering, and logic presses all within these specific ones, and they in turn have interfaces that have encoded patterns, and this is a processing pattern, right, from our pattern interface, but we're going to go ahead and put these different patterns into the interfaces that are facing their machines. So basically, if I put in a request for a silicon press, it will go ahead, put it into here, throw a silicon in, it'll put that out, and it'll come out through an import bus on the other side. Of course, import bus, bring it back into our system. So if you have ME drives, if you have like chests with storage buses attached to them, whatever the case may be, it will attempt to take it somewhere and put it somewhere else in your system where it can happily hang out for a while. Now, this all may seem relatively similar, but a problem we ran into was a couple of things. Number one, I did add a filing cabinet up top because we were messing around with a lot of printed silicon. But more importantly than that, we were running out of silicon. Now, there's a couple of things that we can do to adjust this. Just ignore this chest. This chest was something else, and you don't have to worry about it. But when it comes to this actual process of the silicon, every single one of these 3 on the top, right? So this is going to end up being our logic, right? Our logic processor, engineering processor, and of course our calculation processors. Each one of these requires silicon. So if in theory I were to make 64 of each, I only have 1 inscriber trying to work for these 3. So obviously there's a couple things that we can do. Number one, we could certainly increase the number of inscribers that have silicon presses available to them. So that way, whenever it puts in an order, it has an inscriber to reach out to, and then they can find a process and get that going. Cool. However, the way that I decided to do this for now is I just said, to heck with that, let's forget about it. And let's focus on just getting it to work around having a certain stockpile of this entire printed silicon. So what I did was, we messed around a little bit. I'm still not entirely sure why this behaves the way it behaves. I think there's a little bit something goofy going on in Sky Factory 4. But basically this level emitter here, in conjunction with an export bus, is going to allow us to make our own idea of like, hey, I want to have at least this many things of printed silicon in our system, and make sure that that level is maintained at all times. So this will continue to do its job, but basically it's always working ahead of time and running so we don't have to worry about anything else. Side note, if you do decide to add extra inscribers with silicon presses, this system should also work for that, so you can run them in parallel. Bear in mind, for each interface that you're currently working with, you will need a processing unit, right? So whenever it comes to like our little cubes here, we have 4 of these pink ones, which are co-processing units, and the entire cube itself also constitutes as one actual processor, I guess. So there's a total of 5 processing units available to this particular cube. And so this could interact with a maximum of 5 interfaces for the crafting of this, or 5 parallel operations. So if I were just to have strictly only interested in the interfaces that are going to be doing silicon or whatever, that should be workable from there. So just as a reminder, because I know some people kind of get a little bit confused about how all that works. I think that's right. If I'm wrong, comment section, please enlighten. But I think that's how that works, and so far it's been working well for me. So anyways, back to the whole thing about this level emitter here. All it's going to take is you just go ahead and take your level emitter. You're going to place it down. So if I were to like pretend place this, I'll be placing this underneath, and then I'm going to put a block under here. Now the reason why we do this is because the level emitter will put a redstone signal in the direction that it's facing. So in this particular case, it's facing down, and it's putting that redstone signal to this block. I do not know why this is, but when we tried it, I could not get the signal to go straight to the export bus. So if you are kind of aware if you're aware of how this works, and you're like, Choco, I don't know why you didn't just like put the signal upward into the export bus, that's why it didn't seem to work for us. What I did find that worked was that if we put this torch down, it'll power this block, and this block will in turn power the export bus. So this seems to be working fairly well. In terms of your settings, you're gonna be looking over here, making sure that this is on an item, and then also making sure that your redstone mode is emit when levels are below limit. Now this is actually on the other mode where it's looking for is at or above for its emission. So just be aware, just click on that, change the setting, and then also make sure that whatever item you want, in this case printed silicon, is over here as well. This should work with other things as well if you'd like to go ahead and try to do it for other auto crafting, whatever else. And I think it's fairly simple and it's pretty easy to work with. The number you put in here is going to be how much you desire, how much you'd like to go ahead and keep in there. So if I were to up this to 2,640, you'll notice that this thing turns on and suddenly we're off to the races. And hopefully we're going to see that, yep, there it goes, start putting in orders, and it's going to start working here. Now, the export bus is going to require these 2 cards. The redstone card to look for the actual redstone signal, and the crafting card to actually issue the order to craft the item, in this case printed silicon, from our AE2 system, or our network. In addition to this, whenever you put in the redstone card, you'll have the option then to change the redstone mode. We want this to be active with a signal. And then for crafting behavior, we're asking it to not use stocked items and to only craft when exporting. So this is going to make sure that we are creating genuinely new product and not using anything that we're holding on to in reserve for something else. I'll keep it independent of everything that's going on. All right. In addition to this, we have this feeding into a chest. It doesn't really matter what it is, just some kind of inventory, because what we found was the import bus did not like hanging out right there next to the export bus. I don't know why that is, but it just didn't seem to like it. So putting a chest here allowed us to go ahead and make this all work. It's currently sucking, so export bus pushes it into the chest, import bus sucks that out and then puts it into our network, and then depending upon how you have it set up, it's going to go to whichever place you were sending it to. So in our particular case, it's sending up to this filing cabinet up top. In addition, if you'd like to put some acceleration cards to speed up the export or import process, you can certainly do so. In the case of the advanced inscriber, this is not terribly useful because it's quite slow. If I had multiple going in parallel to each other, yes, maybe there's some kind of use there, but for our purposes, it didn't really make a whole lot of sense. Cool. So just kind of recap, really simple TLDR of everything I just said to kind of go over what would be needed for this silicon thing in particular and go over the method. It's going to be something like this. Put down an advanced inscriber over here. Make sure there's a silicon press. Put acceleration cards if you like to make sure that you're not going to, die of old age while you're doing this. Put an interface on the side of it with a pattern for the actual printed silicon, and make sure that it is a processing pattern, right? So for those of you who do not remember, that's going to look like this, a processing pattern. Just click on the tab. And then whenever you have made sure to get that pattern onto the side in the interface, then you're looking at also making sure there's an import bus on the other side. Acceleration cards also can be helpful here, although admittedly I don't think it's going to really make that big of a difference. And so that will get your basic setup done. For the auto crafting part, it's going to just be a level emitter that's down here, set to do the following, which is item type. Redstone mode is emit when levels are below limit, and then setting your number that you don't want to end up going below, so you have a healthy stock of whatever you need, and then the item inserted into this particular slot. On top of that, we have an export bus that's facing into an inventory, and this export bus has a redstone card with the redstone mode to active with signal, crafting card, and also make sure that the crafting behavior is not using stocked items. After that, the inventory, and then an import bus to take it from this kind of in-between inventory and sending it on its merry, merry way. Now, let's talk about what it's useful for. By doing it this way, you can actually make a whole bunch of different applications for how we can go ahead and maintain a certain stock of items, or if we have an excess of items, to do the exact opposite by switching your level emitter to the different mode and saying, if I have too much, go ahead and dump certain things. So for example, we are going to have a lot of wood from our different bonsais. Because we have a lot of wood coming from our bonsais, we could take our excess wood and put it somewhere else and just make sure that we have a healthy level of wood that we feel comfortable holding on to. Good ideas. In terms of the way that this executes as well for other complex things, bear this in mind for the next episode where we're going to be talking about these deep mob things. I'll probably bring it up then as well, but just be aware that that will also be something that you could do for the polymer clay and other things like that. Couple of tips in addition to what I've talked about. Number one, when it comes to making sure that you are happy with where your items are going, if you would like to have it go into a specific place and you have different options, be sure to set your priority to something that is higher if you would like for it to go there first, or lower if you would like for it to go there last. So for example, if I have a filing cabinet that has an enemy storage bus with +1 and another one with -1, the +1 will be filled up first, so to speak, and then the second one will be filled up last. So in case you're wondering as to how that works, that's a little tip there. Number two, you can, instead of doing it this way, replace this with your own redstone circuitry. I do not know why it did not work feeding upward into a cable with an export bus. Not sure what the cause was for that, but regardless, if you have your own redstoning that you would like to do, feel free to do so, as this does it does interact with redstone dust and is able to go ahead and kind of send that signal clearly through to everything else. But anyways, that's going to be it for this short episode. The other spotlights are going to be very, very similar like this. But let me know if you enjoyed this. Let me know if you'd also like to see more of these from the different mod packs that we play, because I'm honestly thinking that the gameplay has always been a little bit more about being able to follow along with what I do. I know sometimes it gets a little bit complicated. A lot of stuff that we've encountered recently has been a little bit more involved. So if this is helpful, please do let me know. Other than that, that's all I think I have for now. Next time we'll be talking about deep mob, and that should be about it. So as always, most importantly, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful and safe day. And until next time, me and Mini-Me wish you well. Take care and ciao for now.